As listed in the course outline, we're going to cover system requirements, installation steps, and how to configure CentreWare Web. We'll take a look at device discovery, device management, reports, and some advanced topics as well. System requirements. Let's begin with the hardware system requirements. If there are less than 400 devices, we recommend a 1 GHz x86 processor with 1 GB of RAM. If there are more than 400 devices, we recommend a 2 GHz x86 processor with 2 GB of RAM. A separate server with SQL Express installed is highly recommended if A. The number of groups configured for current status polling is greater than 20, or B. The number of alert profiles is greater than 20, or C. Job data consumption is greater than 100,000 a week. Finally, 3 GB of free disk space at a minimum. 20 GB minimum of hard disk space if you are collecting historical data on thousands of devices. Software system requirements. Let's begin with OS support. CentreWare Web supports the following systems: Windows XP, Windows 2003, Windows Vista, Windows 2008, and Windows 7. CentreWare Web does not support Windows NT 4, Windows 2000, all versions, Windows systems running on a Novell client, Macintosh, or non-NTFS partitions. Prerequisites. Microsoft Data Access Component 2.8 or higher must be installed. MDAC is freely available at Microsoft.com. MS XML 4.0, Service Pack 2, must be installed before CentreWare Web can be installed. And IIS, Internet Information Services 6.0 or 7.0, must be configured for 6.0 compatibility and installed before you can start a CentreWare Web installation. Some additional notes on software system prerequisites. First, for Windows Vista, XP, 2003 systems, you must install IIS in the appropriate Windows OS installation media. On the network, TCP/IP must be loaded and operational. CentreWare Web requires a Microsoft SQL Server version of MSBE 2000 Express or 2005. If the Microsoft SQL Server 2005 Express database software included with CentreWare Web is installed, it will automatically be correctly configured. Xerox CentreWare Web installs version 3.5 of the Microsoft.NET framework. While XP will load all of the IIS web management tools and web services, Vista requires you to select which tools and services to load for IIS. When installing on Windows Vista, be sure to reference the CentreWare Web Installation Guide, where you will find a list of web management tools and web services that need to be installed in IIS. For example, IIS Management Console and IIS Management Services. Understanding security. This is a list of the ports used by CentreWare Web. The tables on the following slides can help you identify CentreWare Web features and functions that will be adversely impacted if certain ports are disabled within a customer's network. This may be done at routers or other locations in a customer's network. Here is a continued list of the ports and protocols used by CentreWare Web. Here is a list of required privileges for the CentreWare Web Run As account. If you do not have these privileges, some features of CentreWare Web will be adversely affected. Installation. Upgrading any version prior to 4.0 requires the assistance of the CentreWare Web Support Help Desk. Users must contact support to upgrade. Depending on the size of the database and other variables, this may be an involved process. To upgrade versions 4.0 and later, whether a minor or major upgrade, the user must uninstall and then reinstall the application. Please work with support if you need any more information or assistance. When installing CentreWare Web and a CentreWare Web database exists on the SQL server selected, an option is given to either use an existing database or create a new one. When Use Existing Database is selected, CentreWare Web will automatically upgrade the existing database to support the new features, and no data will be lost. It is, however, always good practice to back up the database prior to the upgrade. To install CentreWare Web, follow these instructions. First, access the Xerox website at www.xerox.com/CentreWare Under Free Download, click Download Now. Choose your operating system and language, then click Go. Fourth, in the Utilities and Applications section, select CentreWare Web, whatever the latest version is, currently 5.0. Read the End User License Agreement, then click Accept. Finally, click Save to download the installer to your computer. Note, when installing the application software, you must be logged into the target server with administrator privileges, or be logged in as the server administrator. Please refer to the README at xerox.com/CentreWare for detailed install instructions and for updates to the installation process. By using the Advanced button to specify a domain-level user, the CentreWare web server will be able to manage queues on print servers other than the queues created on the CentreWare web server itself. This can be changed after the installation has successfully completed by using the configuration utility. By default, the CentreWare web installer installs Microsoft SQL 2005 Edition Express. If the customer already uses Microsoft SQL Server 2005, there is an option to use an existing database server. There's a caveat. To attach to an existing SQL server, the user installing CentreWare Web must provide SQL admin level credentials so the databases can be created on the database server. SQL Server must be set to Mixed Mode Authentication. To offer a note about upgrades, an upgrade will use all of the existing settings. If any version of CentreWare Web has already been uninstalled, the uninstaller will not remove the MSDE or the databases. If you really want a clean install, you must uninstall the CentreWare Web instance of MSDE as well as delete the data in the directory. Next, it's time to pick the destination folder. Click Change to change the destination folder for SQL 2005 Express. Or click Next if you want to select the default location where SQL 2005 Express will be installed. Here, the user is allowed to choose which website to use for CentreWare Web. You can use the default website, or you can choose another website. Next, we choose the destination folder for the CentreWare Web application installation. Click Change to change the destination folder, and then click Next. Or click Next if you want to select the default location where CentreWare Web is installed. After all the initial information has been added to the application, CentreWare Web is now ready to take all that information and begin the installation process. Click Install to begin the process. After the installation is complete, you are given the option to launch the application. Launching CentreWare Web. To access CentreWare Web from a remote computer, go to http:// then the server name /CentreWare Web. To access CentreWare Web from the server on which it's installed, click Start, then Programs. Go to the Xerox folder, then Xerox CentreWare Web, and click on Xerox CentreWare Web. The Getting Started wizard helps users set up key features needed to get CentreWare Web up and running for the first time. This will walk a user through the basic settings that are needed to start using CentreWare Web to manage your printing fleet. The How Many Printers section allows the user to select pre-configured amounts of devices found on the subnet, as well as choosing the frequency that their status is refreshed. By moving the status bar to the right, more of the network will be searched for printers. On large networks, it is not suggested to move the status bar all the way to the right, but to configure discovery methods from the Administration tab. We'll be covering that later. The Outgoing Mail Server configuration is used to set up which SMTP server will be used for CentreWare Web to send out email statuses to mail recipients. This must be set up before email alerts or emailing reports can be used. The proxy server configuration is used to allow CentreWare Web to communicate to the Internet for download retrievals. CentreWare Web supports multiple proxy server types, but when set on Auto Detect, it will try to determine the correct proxy server type. This configuration is required for automatic driver downloads and smart e-solutions, such as automated meter reads. The proxy server configuration is used to allow CentreWare Web to communicate to the Internet for download retrievals. CentreWare Web supports multiple proxy server types, but when set on Auto Detect, it will try to determine the correct proxy server type. This configuration is required for automatic driver downloads and smart e-solutions, such as automated meter reads. Configuring CentreWare Web. Under Administration, the user can define the site information and contact information for the installation of the application. This information can be used if multiple CWW instances have to be installed. This will enable users to know which CentreWare Web instance they are viewing. The identity information will allow them to know who to contact if they have questions about the application. If the SMTP and proxy server were not set up using the configuration wizard, they can be set up by accessing the Email and External Services page on the Administration tab. This page also allows the user to test the settings that they have entered. Under the Administration tab in the Network section, you will see the proxy server settings. This page allows the user to set a different proxy server for HTTP and HTTPS communications outside of their network. They can also set the authentication type for the proxy server, as well as the username and password to use when accessing the proxy server. Enter the username, domain, and password to test the server. You need this enabled to use Smart e-Solutions, unless you know what the server is. Then, leave it at Auto Detect. Device Discovery. CentreWare Web has a powerful set of discovery capabilities to locate devices. Various discovery options are provided to ensure client network and IT environments can be supported. Discovery can be tailored to find individual printers or specific groups of printers. You can also specify the frequency, date, and time for scheduling automatic discovery. In this example, there is a discovery named Lab Sweep, which contains information to sweep a specific lab network. This is a very flexible feature, especially in larger environments where there may be benefits in tailoring discovery behavior to avoid excessive traffic on the customer's network. After selecting New Discovery, the next step is to specify the desired discovery type. Though not shown, CentreWare Web now has the ability to create a new discovery method based on a previous one that has already been created for the site. You can choose from a number of discovery types. The discovery method is then assigned a name and can be configured with a predefined schedule. This shows the initial steps for creating a new IP sweep method. For example, sites with a dynamic device environment typically run discovery on a regular basis to ensure that all new or moved devices have been discovered. If you choose IP broadcasts, it will broadcast messages out and printers will respond. However, you should know that routers will often disable the ability to accept broadcasts. Network-specific information can then be added by any number of methods, including the ability to import customer-supplied data in CSV format. In large environments, the import can save a significant amount of data entry time. You have the choice of discovering with an address range, choosing a subnet, or simply defining a single address or DNS name. Notice that there is an ability to provide for IP exclusions within the discovery process. The exclude list takes precedence over the subnet discovery list. For example, you may wish to exclude the IP address range of a financial institution's ATM network. Notice that a customer-supplied exclusion list can be imported. When discovery is initiated, CentreWare Web checks IP, IPX network addresses, subnets, and ranges that it is configured to search. For each SNMP-compliant printer that responds, the application identifies the printer and stores information about it in its database. Selecting the Progress button brings up a window that shows the current progress of the selected discovery. Discoveries can be run at any time. The SNMP settings are critical to the discovery method as they must match. If SNMP is not properly configured, then discovery will be incomplete or unsuccessful. Printer SNMP Set Community Names allows you to define or change multiple SNMP set, write, community names that are used to modify values on a printer. Printer SNMP Get Community Names allows you to define or change multiple SNMP Get or read community names that are used to retrieve values from a printer. Router SNMP GET community names allows you to define or change multiple SNMP GET community names that are used for router queries. Routers are queried for attached IP subnets when using IP subnet scan or IP ARP cache. Router SNMP GET community names provide access to network routers so that discovery is not blocked, increasing discovery success. SNMP trap settings contain server's community name for SNMP traps and default trap registration settings for newly discovered printers. If the printers being managed do not support traps, enabling the feature provides no additional information and may generate an undesirable volume of additional network traffic. CentreWare Web can also be configured to wait 30 seconds after receiving a trap before querying a device. This delay provides time for additional traps to be received from the device, which can occur for certain fault conditions. The manufacturer applicability setting offers the ability to discover only Xerox devices or all printers and queues connected to the network, regardless of manufacturer. Choosing all network printers and all queue-connected printers will increase network traffic. Only Xerox network printers discoveries will reduce network traffic. The DNS names setting allows for the lookup of DNS names of discovered devices. When available, the DNS names will be used for printer management while performing HTTP network requests. When the network uses DHCP on devices, this functionality is useful. Local printer discovery. How does it work? It occurs in one of three ways. 1. When a managed print server is added. 2. When an Active Directory is added. Or 3. When a sweep-based discovery method's advanced properties is set to network and directly connected printers. The Active Directory is queried for queues within the computer name that hosts the queue. IP sweep methods determine an IP is a computer, then the computer name is identified. Once a computer name is identified, standard Microsoft APIs are used to get information about the queues on that computer. These APIs use Microsoft RPC protocol. Firewalls can block these remote administration calls and prohibit remote sweeps. Publicly shared local printers can be discovered without administrator rights. Private local printer discovery requires administrator rights on the target computer. These are some of the common questions asked about local printer discovery. Does any software need to be loaded on the client PC? No. What types of local printers can be discovered? Are there any limitations? Almost any type of local printer can be discovered. The only limitation is that the local printer installation follows the standard Microsoft installation. The operating system can supply port information in the standard Microsoft structure. LPT, COM, and USB local printers are discovered. Can CentreWare Web obtain status on local devices? No. CentreWare Web only discovers local devices. Status and other importing is not available.